Ooh.
So we're going to level with you today. A lot of the IT work is repetitive. It's not necessarily the clicks or it's not necessarily keystrokes, but it's the tasks that you do over and over again.
Right. Okay. So password resets every day, router reconfigs every day, flushing application pools. It comes down to a lot of the same stuff, different day.
Yeah, and that's why when we find a tool or a trick or something that we really, really like that helps kind of shorten that time that we take to do these things over and over again, we make sure we get that and we put it into our constant toolbox. We install it on all the computers we use, or we carry it on our tool belt with us.
Right. Okay. So the IT life hack series that we're doing is our effort to share some of those tricks that we've discovered with you so you can benefit from them also.
And today on the agenda, we're going to be talking about something where I started my career, and that is systems administration.
Same here. So I think the first place I want to start is the command line. I think this is one of those foundational life hacks that sysadmins come to on their own time, but get used to living and being comfortable at the command line. It's going to save you time. It's going to lead into your ability to automate things, all that stuff.
Mhm. And when you really think about the command line, there's some kind of shortcuts that apply to pretty much whatever shell you're working with.
Yes.
And those are going to be, they sound like simple commands and things you may not be aware of, and they save so much time. The first and easiest one is probably up arrow. Up arrow
Yeah.
will cycle through your history. So if you have a bunch of stuff happening and you're doing all kinds of things, it doesn't matter what it is, and then you're like, oh, I needed that thing. You could just up, and do it again.
Well, and I
And
also think for sysadmins, I typed that command. I typed it 5 minutes ago. Like, why do I have to type it again? You don't have to type it again.
you might have to hit up 3 or 4 times, or
Uh-huh.
maybe longer, but it's still easier than doing it again over
Right.
and over again. This is all about what we can do to shortcut things. The
Mhm.
other one that has to do with that has to do with tab completion. So most modern shells have some type of tab completion. So if you don't necessarily know where you need to go, or you remember it was this, but you have a directory list and it's, scroll off the screen, and maybe you need to go into that directory, it can be as easy as just CD D, and then you can tab. And is that the one you
Mhm.
want? No, that's not the one you want. You want the next one. So you hit tab again. Oh, no, I need the one after that. So you hit tab again, and it just cycles through all of them. And
Right.
different shells do this slightly differently, but tab completion will save you a world of time, especially not just for directory management, but if you remember that executable started with something, but you
Uh-huh.
can't remember what it is, you can tab, 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 and get the list of them.
Exactly. And closely related to tab completion is wildcards. Now, most people are comfortable or familiar with wildcards for file names, right? CD, or copy star.star or whatever. However, you can also do that in command. So for example, here, if I want to go to the SW files directory, I can type CD SW star. Now that's not going to work because I have several things, and we can see that with that tab completion. I have a few different options. But what I can do is go to the point where it couldn't be anything else.
Where the delta begins.
And that at that point, when I use star, it's just going to take me right there. So that's another quick shortcut. Pivoting from command line foo, I think that one command that you need to get comfortable with in Windows is the net command, and specifically net use, where you map drives. Get comfortable knowing how to list out the drives that you have, map the drives, because that's going to lead into profile scripts, any kind of automation that you're doing.
And that's something that can be repeated over and over again. And even
Yeah.
better, once you script it out, if you put it in a profile script, you're not running it over and over again. You're asking the operating system to do it on your behalf, which is
Right.
just so much better. Uh, Related to that is NetSH.
Yeah.
NetSH is huge and deep and gets into a million things, mostly around the network configuration in your environment. There's probably a small handful of commands you just want to kind of have in either Notepad or OneNote or somewhere where you kind of can quickly access them. Just have them kind of in the back of your mind that, oh, I need this thing. You can probably get it out with NetSH.
Perfect. Okay. And you had a trick for people who have VPN, and the VPN gets out of sync with the domain and the local account and things like that. So let's wrap up this section with that.
Sure. So what we ended up doing, I ended up doing this a lot, is I would change my password while I was on VPN, and the corporate VPN and Active Directory got the password changed. Great. And then I would shut down, reboot my computer, turn it back on the following day, go to log in with the new password, and it's not taking it. It'll take my old one, but it won't take my new one. So I'm like, that's not good, because then all of my programs are going to try to use my old one because that's what I logged in with.
Uh-huh.
So the way you actually get around that is you do get on the VPN, use your old password to get on, then connect your VPN, use your new password, and then run a simple command. and just open up the command prompt and do run as. Now this is it's a slightly advanced one, but all you do is give it run as user and then the domain you're working with and then the name of the user account and then any executable. And for me, I would just normally do command prompt again. And once you do that, it'll prompt you for the password. This is your new password.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see that it opens up a new window and says you are currently running this as that account. And what that has done is that has forced your local Windows creds to be synchronized with that new account. So next time you reboot, you should be able to log in with your new password. And since system administrators don't kind of do their job in a closed bubble, you have to work with other teams. And a lot of the questions you get when you talk to people like a networking team is like, where do I put various servers and services? And the big one is always, where do I put my DHCP servers?
Right. And the first thing is, well, do I put it on the router? Do I put it on a Linux box? Do I put it on part of Windows Active Directory, some third party, DHCP service or whatever? That's one, but I don't think
Yeah,
that's the
and
most interesting question.
no, that's not the most interesting question. It's a great question, like what platform do I want to use? But the better question is, where does the DHCP server actually live within your infrastructure? And for me, historically, the best practice that I've always heard is put it as close to the people making the requests. Normally, these are workstation computers. Put it as close to them as possible. Now, if you've got branch office scenarios, that means you might have a DHCP server in each of your branch locations. And we
And
get
the,
the conversation all the time about moving stuff to a data center. And
right.
that's what you were doing.
And the reason for that is just to be aware that DHCP in its natural state doesn't jump subnets, so it doesn't cross routers. Of course, it does.
Yeah, it can.
Because and that's what the IP helper concept is for. But when you're coming across a WAN, all of a sudden you have to backhaul all sorts of communication, and it's a WAN circuit, so it might go down and whatever. So you don't want to do that. There's two fallouts from this. One, it makes monitoring DHCP tricky because it doesn't cross routers. So if your monitoring system is in your data center, getting monitoring data of the DHCP services that are in all those other places can be challenging, which is why IPSLA as a protocol is really interesting because that will let you monitor DHCP in the location it's at. But the other thing is that having a manager of managers for DDI, DHCP, DNS, and IP management is really good because it will unify those platforms. It doesn't matter if some of the DHCP servers are running on a router and some of them are running on, Active Directory and some are running on a Linux box or whatever. And also, if they're in different locations, it will show you all of those in one place and let you manage them as a single unified DHCP system, regardless of how distributed it is.
Exactly. And that's kind of the key. We're trying to make everyone's jobs easier. And sometimes that is just making sure you can see everything in the same place. So what I found is a lot of people will actually have like a jump box in a data center or a place where they kind of work on things, and they'll install the RSAT tools, which are available on Windows. You can download them as a bundle and then add them as features. The problem with that is that they typically get bundled and hidden. And those admin tools are buried all the way down here. And that's fine if you know the MSC shortcuts for it, but no one was going to remember all of those. So what I did is I kind of short circuited this, and in my taskbar created myself a new toolbar. Browse for the root folder. In this case, it'll be the admin tools. And there they all are. Quick and easy access.
Nice. The next tip I want to show is something that Windows desktop admins remember pretty easily, but server admins tend to forget, which is, first of all, the registry in general. Yes, it's a thing, just like command line, get comfortable in the registry. But second of all, this particular registry Hive, HKey local machine or HKey current user, it does the same thing under software, under Microsoft, under all the way down, Windows, under current version, dun, da, da, is run. This is where your startup, before they added a startup program manager or whatever it was, this is how you knew what was going to start up on your machine at any given time. If you have a program that's either misbehaving or taking up time or memory, or you just don't want it, this is where it's going to be. Also, run once is where if something is supposed to run once and then die because it's supposed to auto delete, but it doesn't, you can find that there. And again, you're going to find that setting both under HKey local machine and HKey current user, and they can be different. So that's another life hack about finding why a system isn't behaving the way you think it should, or why programs are starting and you don't want them to, or things like that.
And one of the last things that we want to talk about, or I want to talk about, is how excited I am about Windows Terminal. I know we talked about Command Prompt and DOS Prompt and whether you can use Bash or all these things,
Hmm.
but Windows Terminal is something new. It's in the Microsoft Store, and what it does is it basically builds the shell of your dreams. Whatever you want to use, if you're like me and you collect these shells because you know some Unix, you know some Linux, you know some Windows stuff, and you want to bring this all together, you can actually
Shells are the Pokemon of sysadmins.
they kind of are. Everyone has their favorite, but they
Uh,
also have 5 or 6 that they work with all the time. And for me, what I really love about this is it also supports the Windows Linux subsystem. So you can actually have in a Ubuntu shell and all the Ubuntu commands work, or you can have separate PowerShell ones like PowerShell 7. Oh, but stuff only runs here in PowerShell for Windows or 5.1. So you can have that one as a separate one over and over again. This is just a great kind of mini program. And since it does these all in tabs and they are completely customizable, I have not changed it, but you can set like background opacity, all the stuff you used to do for terminal and Xterm, you can
uh,
do all of that stuff with Windows Terminal. So
I
if
know.
you're the Unix guy turned Windows, give it a look. So those are just a few of the IT life hacks that we've collected over the years, but we'd love to hear from you and find out which ones you've collected.
Meanwhile, you can look for more IT life hacks coming soon.